So buyers make mistakes all the time, but if you know what the common pitfalls are, you can avoid them. So here are 5 very important mistakes you need to avoid at all costs, even if you're experienced. The first one is lack of pre-approval. A lot of people think they can go to a website, put in what they earn, and then get a good idea of what they can get pre-approved for. In some straightforward cases, this may work, but 9 times out of 10, that'll give you the wrong answer. I was recently talking to Stephen Barber from Guaranteed Rate, and he gave me some specific examples of why getting a pre-approval is the only real way to know what you can spend on a home. The first thing he said was that people have misconceptions regarding new jobs and how it affects qualifying. Many people think it's a good thing when you go from being a W-2 employee to an independent contractor and they increase their wages. Although it may put more money in your pocket, it's unfortunately a bad thing for when it comes to qualifying for a mortgage, because you're now a newly self-employed person with no self-employment history. So the other thing he said is couples aren't always honest and open with each other regarding their credit. Credit issues, they're not a popular thing to talk about in a new relationship, let's face it. So sometimes, Stephen said, there are areas where people have got a negative credit event that come up, which the clients just weren't upfront about. For this reason, a lender will want to run the credit report as early on during the conversation as possible. Some clients also assume they have to put down 20% and delay their home search. For owner-occupied primary residences, for example, there are a multitude of different programs that allow for smaller down payments. If you talk to a lender, you can explore these options much earlier on in the process, and it's great information to know. So the next big mistake is ignore doing your own inspections at your peril. In Sonoma County, and particularly as you move up the price points, a lot of sellers will do the inspections themselves, including the pest, the home, and then if you're in a rural area, septic and well. The reason I would always get a seller to do these inspections is so that when the home does get an offer, the buyer is making the offer having been made aware of all the issues with the property. By doing that, it's very hard for the buyer to then renegotiate the price based on findings from their own inspections. That being said, even if the seller has done the inspections, it's still worth doing inspections. It's expensive, but it's often worth it. Here's why. Not all inspectors are equal. I'll let you into a dirty little secret. All realtors know of inspectors who are less thorough than others, and vice versa. I'm not suggesting people do this, but if you were a seller, would you want a thorough inspector or one who would let certain things go? I'll always pay close attention to who has done the inspections if it's provided by a seller, and then advise a buyer accordingly based on the property and also how competitive it's likely to be in securing the property. The other thing that's important is to get a lateral sewer inspection, particularly in a place like Healdsburg, where in order to do any type of significant remodel over $25,000, you need to prove that your lateral sewer is in good working condition. If it isn't, in order to get your remodel signed off, you'd have to potentially replace the lateral sewer, which could cost you as much as $50,000. So if you are thinking of doing a big remodel, you'll want to know in advance the condition of the lateral sewer. And then with a rural property, there's always more to investigate. And that's particularly true when it comes to septic systems. Again, you have to be careful who you use. There are septic engineers, qualified septic inspectors, and then septic pumping companies. They will all do an inspection, but again, not all inspections are equal, so make sure you get the right inspector to do a septic inspection. The next mistake that buyers make is to understand the cost of insurance. In California, where so many of the big insurers such as Allstate and State Farm have stopped insuring new customers, it's so important that you understand if it's possible to get regular insurance policy for a home, and if not, whether you are comfortable getting a fair plan policy, which is California's insurer of last resort. And you also need to know what the likely costs are. I've got a video all about getting home insurance, so check that out. In some cases, if you're looking at properties that are a bit more remote, up high, with a view, the cost of insurance may actually make you rethink the type of property you're looking for. Or rather, it may at least let you factor insurance into your decision-making process and the cost of property that you're looking for. For example, if it's the home up a single-track lane at the top of a ridge surrounded by trees, you can expect the insurance to be hard to get and be expensive. Generally speaking, If a home is within city limits, it will be likely easier to insure simply because the fire services will be more easily able to get to the property. If you are looking at a more rural property, it's worth thinking about how far from fire service it is and also the ease of access for ingress and egress. That will all impact the overall cost of your insurance. The next mistake buyers make is to not keep their emotions in check. I always think it's strange that you make the most expensive purchase of your life off the back of a quick half-hour visit. In a competitive market like we've had in Sonoma for the last few years, it's all too easy to offer on the first property you see. However, it's important to take your time and really get to understand the nuances of an area or of a neighborhood or of a property before you get carried away with a particular home. It's sometimes easy to fall for a beautifully remodeled home that's staged well because it's presented in a way that is designed to make it alluring. However, take your time to really think about how you will use the house. Where will the TV go? Do your California king beds fit in the bedrooms? What are the neighbors like? Do they live there all the time? Or is it a second home or a vacation rental? I will often take a look at the tax records of the surrounding properties just to see, are they owner occupied or are they a vacation rental or are they permanently rented out? It's important to really understand, what you're buying into in a neighborhood. There's also nothing wrong with requesting to spend a significant amount of time at the property. For example, I've taken my clients to a property just to hang out at sunset and enjoy a bottle of wine. The peace and tranquility of the property was really important to this particular client, so they wanted to experience it at different times of day, and there's nothing wrong with that. When you are in a competitive situation, which happens is probably 30, 40, 50% of transactions right now, it's important to take a step back and really ask what the property is worth to you, rather than thinking about what somebody else might offer for the property. People often say to me, "So David, how much do you think that this property will sell for?" I'll use data to try and predict the final price when there are multiple offers, because there is a fairly strong correlation between the number of offers and the percentage over asking that a property may sell for. However, that's not really the important question. The most important thing for buyers is to understand at what price would they be willing to lose out on the property? Every property has a maximum price it's worth to any given buyer. So I definitely encourage buyers to really think about the price at which they would not be upset to lose out on the property. That gives you a really strong sense of what you should be offering. And then the final mistake people make is not thinking about the future. Sometimes it's just easy to focus on the here and now. However, it's really important to think about your home purchase in the context of where you are in your life, but also where we are in the natural economic cycle of the housing market. For example, right now, unless there was a life event which meant there was no other choice, I would not recommend someone purchase a property if they know they're going to need to sell it in a year or so. I just think that the market uncertainty right now is such that there'll be no guarantee that you would actually be able to be made whole if you were to sell the property in a year's time, especially by the time you pay commissions and closing costs on the sale of the property. It's almost impossible to time the market perfectly. So unless you are specifically buying a property with the view to improving it to make a return, you do need to take a medium-term view at the very least right now, if not a longer-term view. Also, choosing a home is about more than the physical property itself. It's very much a lifestyle you're buying into, so it's important to think about the lifestyle you want now versus the lifestyle you might want in the future. I must confess, I made this mistake a while back before as a realtor. I bought a home that had a Healdsburg address, but the reality was that it was just too far from the city. It was a 25-minute drive, which didn't align with how we wanted to live our lives. We realized that being so far away every time we wanted to go to the grocery store or go to a bar or go to a restaurant for dinner was not the lifestyle we wanted. This sounds like an obvious mistake, and maybe it is, but you'd be surprised at how many people make this mistake when they live in San Francisco and think they want to live the rural lifestyle. The reality is, it's often a little different than the dream. So these are the top mistakes I feel buyers make, but this is by no means an exhaustive list, and it's not meant to be. The main thing is to be clear about your priorities, but also clear about the trade-offs you're prepared to make. No matter how much money you have, There are always trade-offs. Being aware of what you're prepared to compromise on is probably the most important part of the search. When it comes to the transaction, just make sure you work with somebody who's doing, I don't know, over 20, 30 transactions a year, because that's really the only way as a realtor you see enough deals to make sure mistakes aren't made. I get calls all the time from people moving homes, especially around Healdsburg, Windsor, Sonoma and Santa Rosa areas. So do reach out to me if you are looking at buying in or around Sonoma County or would like to know more. My number's in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy the next one on screen right now. Until the next video, go well.